Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you. Well, welcome to The Connected Life.
Hello.
Hello. My name is, I don't know why I'm saying my name. They know my name. I'm Abby.
And I'm Justin.
Wow, your voice has changed.
Some things might have changed since the last podcast.
This is, for all of you listening for the first time, this is Pietze Duffield, and she is my best friend.
Besties for the resties.
Yeah. I have known her for 28 years.
Yep. We decided this week that if our husbands died, we would just buy a house and become roommates.
Yeah, becomes old spinsters.
Yeah, we'd become old spinsters. We'd probably go to bingo. We'd have our cats. We would watch Golden Girls every night.
We would.
Every single night.
We'd be living it up.
We'd be living our best life.
You know what? Who even cares if they die?
We love you, boys.
I desperately don't ever want my husband to die.
Yeah, me neither. I always tell Johnny, I'm like, I'm going first.
Yeah.
I'm
it's a
100%
competition.
going first.
No, I will kill him if he dies first.
I think that'll backfire.
Totally.
But
You'll already be.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I totally tell Johnny, I'm like, I'm going first. Don't just, that's the rule. That's how it's going to happen. Because I can't live without you.
Well, in case you're listening and you're like, where's Justin's manly voice? I booted him off of here. Why? Because he booted me off of here a couple times so he could have some man chats. And I was like,
We got to balance this thing out.
No, I'm just kidding. Actually, he has a migraine right now. So
Oh, poor guy.
he's not here. But we have plenty to talk about without him. Who needs that guy?
Yeah, who needs him anyways? Just kidding. We love him.
We love when he says things.
And you know what? We love even more.
We love when he says things.
We love when he says all the things. We just love things that he says.
Yeah.
But we also love driving him crazy.
Yeah.
Which we've done a lot this week.
Yeah.
And my husband.
Yeah.
They're both pretty much tapped out on us. They're done. They're like, you two need to be separated. We're done.
Your husband just mostly shakes his head and rolls his eyes at us nonstop.
Pretty much that's in my entire life. So you just come in and then you join in on it.
extra.
It's like double eye rolls. He's like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, now I have two to roll my eyes out. Yeah,
My husband, because we did a Facebook Live this week, and we ended up, now, okay, me and Pietze have lots of matching clothes, which is
Yes.
funny because there's no part of my personality. Listen, we are going to get to something that has a point, guys, so hold on.
Yes,
But
we
first I have
will.
to tell you about our matching clothes.
Yeah. So this is important.
We have matching clothes. No part of me has ever been like, I want to wear the same outfit as someone else. That's not what happens.
No, it's never what happens.
I look at your outfit and I think, that looks so good. I want to look that good.
Yeah, everyone thinks that when they look at me. It's a common feeling. No. I think the other thing, though, is that if I find clothes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to buy this for you. So then I just buy them for us both.
Yes.
Because I'm like, oh my gosh, we both need this.
Yeah.
You know?
So we have a lot of similarities, and I am very influenced by your style. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, pretty much if I could look like you, I'd be happy.
If I could look like you, I'd be happy. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
I mean, we both like our own bodies,
Yes.
but I do like how you show up in the world.
Me too. I like how you show up in the world.
Thanks.
See why we would be good roommates? This is an example right here.
But so when we showed up on the Facebook Live wearing the same outfit, my husband was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
I know. My husband came down and was like,
life.
you guys are idiots. Like 100% you guys are idiots.
But we love it.
We love it.
Yeah.
We love annoying them. And we love matching.
Okay, so here's what happened is this week we decided to do an Instagram Live, and we asked people for questions of things that they wanted to know. And so they sent us in a bunch of questions, and a lot of them had to do with friendship. And so we started sharing about friendship, and I got so many messages from people saying, please do a podcast on this. I want to send it to everybody I know. And I'm like, of course, if you want it, we'll give it to you.
More time together to talk?
Yes.
And reminisce about ourselves? Totally fine. As Justin says, we're like the ultimate narcissist when it comes to our own relationship. We think each other's so funny.
No. You know what it's like? It's like Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. For anybody who remembers
100%.
that.
We used to watch that movie all the time because we're like, this is us.
This is us. Because they'd just be like,
us.
oh my gosh, I love us.
Yes.
That's
I love
what they
us so
would say.
much. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to kind of talk about the story of our friendship and the ups and downs because I know that we've seen a lot of people create ideas that we have this perfect friendship and everybody romanticizes relationships, whether they're guy, girls.
Friendship goals.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think we should kind of dispel the myth and actually talk about how horrible it is to be friends. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't do it ever.
Don't do it.
Worst thing ever.
So we'll just start with how our friendship began and kind of process through what it went through and what we've learned.
That's great.
Is that good?
So how did our friendship begin?
So we met because you moved into our town.
Yep.
And so my dad, you were a part of the church that we were going to. And so my dad wanted to bring cookies to your family and like welcome you. And you guys lived a half a block away from us.
Yeah.
Which is probably like serendipitous. Like where you lived actually is probably why we're friends.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's like the most bizarre thing. We literally lived half a block from each other.
So I came to your house with my dad. He forced me to. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And he was always like forcing me not to be shy. It'd be like, you either talk to these people or I'll spank you. Shy is not a personality.
Oh, dear Lord.
It is disobedience.
I've had a lot of inner healing.
I've had to have a lot of inner healing. But he did help me become a people person.
Yes,
so
he sure did.
But so I go over to Pietze's house and her brother was actually my age and she was 2 years younger.
Yes, that's right.
That was when I was probably 7 years old.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
7 or 8. And so that's 2 years is a big gap. Then.
Yeah, at that age, it is a big gap.
Yeah, it would be like me being 8 and you being 6 or me being 7 and you being 5.
It's like, I'm the adult and you're an idiot kid. Get away from me. And that was pretty much how you felt.
Yeah, I felt really disappointed. I was like, oh, man. But I don't know what happened because we just became friends. I don't know how it happened.
Because you know what? That's how I am. I just get into people's hearts like that. I sneak right in and I snatch you up.
Just snatch it up.
Yeah. I don't actually remember us meeting at that time, but I just do remember, like, I remember becoming friends. I remember, like, during that season, we would literally call each other and be like, hey, gonna be at your house in 5 minutes. And then we'd ride bikes to each other's house. And
we also played, like, JCPenney catalog.
Oh, my
gosh. Where I would call you and be like, hi, I would like to purchase a bedspread. And then is that what it's called, a bedspread?
Yeah, bedspread.
Oh, okay, great.
Or comforter.
Yeah.
Either one. Yeah.
And then you'd be like, it's going to be $24.95.
I was like, okay, ma'am, thank you. It'll be $24.95. And then we'd hang up and like reverse roll. Yes. And I'd be like, hey, ma'am, I would really love to buy this polo t-shirt.
Totally.
Like, yeah. We were dorks.
So, okay, so we became friends and we were there for, so that's probably like, let's say that you were 8, when I was 8 when you moved, and then I was 12 when you moved away. I think it's about 12? Well, I don't know. How old were you when you moved away?
I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
I was beginning 5th grade, so I don't know how old that is.
Yeah, I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
And so I was 12.
Okay.
That's why. So
I must have been like around 10.
Yeah, I probably 9 or 10, and I was probably 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So then you moved away to Denver, and
so that was about an hour away from.
About an hour and a half to Arvada.
Yep.
So we ended up. That's a young age to have your best friend leave.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, and I didn't even choose this. I was devastated. You have 5 brothers, and so I would go over to your house, and I was an only child, so it felt like this great exchange. You'd come over to my house.
And I felt like an only child, so it was perfect. I loved it.
I'd go over to your house and feel like I was a part of a big family.
Yeah.
So we both kind of got that need met.
And we both didn't have sisters, so we became each other's sisters.
Yes. So my mom just, for whatever reason, decided, and this is one of the things I thank her for the most, she decided, no matter what it costs, I'm going to sacrifice to make sure you guys can stay friends.
Yeah.
So she would take me out of school for a week at a time and let me come down and do my homework at your house.
Your mom basically groomed us to be lifelong friends now that I'm thinking about it. Because she would always tell us, she's like, do you know, girls, one day you guys are going to grow up and you guys are going to be each other's best friends. And you're going to be so happy that you guys were each other's best friends. She used to tell us that all the time.
That's really cute.
It's really sweet.
So we learned to be friends over the phone and do long distance.
Yep.
In fact, we have very rarely lived in the same place since then.
It's been really small seasons, like a couple months at a time where we've lived in the same place.
Yep.
But other than that, it's always been long distance.
Which is sad and good.
Yeah.
It's
Every
worked.
time we're together, I'm like, why is this not a thing? Like, why do we not live by each other? Like, this sucks.
It's so true.
But yeah, we learned well how to do relationship well.
Yeah. So growing up, it was very sisterly from the beginning in the fact that we fought when we were kids.
Oh, yeah. One of our most notorious fights was over none other. Let me just describe this fight. This fight consisted of us rolling around on the ground, pulling each other's hair. I think somebody bit somebody at one point.
I bit you.
You bit me.
I think I'm Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah. And you were. And I think I punched you.
Yes.
Back. And
Pulling
this
hair.
whole fight was over none other than a Pooh Bear watch.
Yep.
A Pooh Bear watch. You did not hear that wrong. Do not rewind. So, I mean, it was truly like sisters. I don't know why we were fighting over that watch, but it happened.
Yep. So we grew up having lots of times when we'd be together. As soon as I got my car, I was able to spend lots of time. We actually both homeschooled in high school.
Yep.
So I was able to go down for like a week at a time.
And I would go down to your place for a week at a time.
Yep.
And the cute thing is like Abby's 2 years older. So when she got her driver's license, I was like right there. I was like so excited because I was like, freedom for both of us. I was like just as excited for you to get your license as maybe more than I was to get mine. Because I was like, we can go anywhere. We're going to do all the things.
Yes.
It was awesome.
So we became friends and we were close. There was a couple, like I remember in middle school, we had a big snafu. That's what I'll call it, a big fight.
Yeah.
We had fights consistently, I think. I don't remember ever a season where there wasn't conflict.
No,
but it wasn't the main thing.
No, it wasn't the main thing.
But it was always there. But I remember in like middle school, we had a pretty dramatic one.
Oh, yeah.
At camp where neither of us were sure we were going to make it for a little while.
Yep, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And then we grew older, and I would say we've had lots of different seasons in our friendship. And this is something I think people, again, the Instagram world, we imagine every season of every person's friendship is when they're being the most fulfilled and satisfied and getting tons of time.
Yep.
But that's just not how life is.
No,
so there's
not
been
at all.
seasons where we've been really, really close and seasons where it's been harder. I remember one season where there's less connection was when you were falling in love.
Yes.
We just talked less, and
it was a hard season. It wasn't hard for me
no,
when I was falling in love.
You're like, whoa!
I have it all. I have the man and I got my best friend and I'm good.
Yes.
But when you fell in love a year later, I was like, I hate life. This is horrible. And I was already married, but I pretty much it was the best. And we say to this day, that was one of the best things that happened for both of us. Our marriage needed that separation, but it was hard.
Well, and so we'll explain it. When Pietze was falling in love, we were a little bit disconnected. But then as she got married, our connection was still strong.
Yeah.
And so there was kind of a coming back together. And when she got married, we always say that I was still her number one.
Yep, totally.
Your husband was your favorite man.
Yep, he was my favorite man.
He was your favorite sex partner.
Yes, absolutely.
Your only sex partner.
Yes, my only.
I was like, I better clarify.
Yeah, I was like, yes,
no.
he was.
Yes. But I was probably still your person.
Yeah, you were my person.
But because I was years.
It was years. So even sometimes I wouldn't want to process things with Johnny because he didn't know context or history where you knew everything. So I could just come to you and be like, this happened. And you'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And get it right away why that would be a big deal.
Yes.
Without me having to explain anything.
Yep.
And I knew it wasn't okay, but I didn't want to change it.
And in the season when you first got married, you had gone through such a hard season right before you got married that had nothing to do with your husband.
Yeah, I'd gone through huge, earth-shattering.
Your whole life fell apart.
Yeah, my whole life fell apart.
Not because of your choices, but other people's choices.
Yep, totally.
And so when you got married, you started having panic attacks.
Yeah.
And you were in a hard season, and I was still probably the person you came to comfort for more than Johnny.
Oh, 100%.
I think Johnny, though, was still thankful for me. I think he was
I think in a lot of ways, he's
thank God somebody's helping her.
Yeah, I think when you got married, he was a little disappointed because he's like, oh, this took a huge weight off of me having to process all this crap with her. He's like, oh yeah, maybe you should call Abby. And I'm like, you're right, I should.
So when I got married about a year later. Mm-hmm. And when I got married, me and Justin took off on a road trip. We've talked about that with our listeners. But I really jumped into life with him. We had so many issues. We had to work through so many things.
Oh yeah, that was like all consuming.
It was all
Your
consuming.
relationship was all consuming. But for me, I remember, do you remember me crying the night before your wedding? And I was like, I feel like I'm losing you. And I was like sobbing.
Yes.
And you were so happy, but I was like sobbing. I was like, I'm losing you. But it was really hard for me. Mm-hmm. It was real. It was like suddenly like, okay, this, like, we're on two different journeys now.
And secretly, I felt a little gleeful because when you got married, like at your wedding, I wept so hard when you drove away.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I knew that. Like, now I'm going to start crying. I literally don't think I knew that. And now I'm tearing up.
I lost it. I lost it because I felt like I was losing you, and I was like, I'm passing you on to another person.
Honey.
And I felt like so devastated. So then when you were crying the night before my wedding, I was like, I know.
You're
girl.
like, yeah, payback.
You'll be fine.
Good for you. You'll be fine.
I made it through. You'll make it through.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that makes me sad.
Oh,
I love you.
I love you. But so we ended up, that is when our lives took a pretty dramatic shift. So I'd say before that, we had lots of differences. Like when we were growing up, I was a mess.
Yeah.
Shame attacks, freakouts, anxiety attacks, depression.
Yep.
I was such a mess. And pretty much Pietze was the solid person. I would run to her. She would hold me when I was crying. She would fix my makeup so that I looked more put together. She would give me the best pep talks. That was her nickname for me. She was like the pep talk queen. Mm-hmm. And so she was constantly rallying me and encouraging me and really giving me the backbone to not quit life.
Yeah.
And she was describe what you were like.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways I was actually emotionally shut down.
Totally.
Yes. So I was very even, but I was incredibly shut down on the inside.
A little disassociated.
Yeah, but also very powerful, very much, I'm going to take over the world.
Yes.
Like, life is my oyster, just full-fledged running at life, super confident, I know myself. And then when I went through that earth-shattering season, I felt apart. I mean, I became a very small, tiny little person. And we kind of flipped because as you got married, you kind of stepped into who you were. As you started to get more healthy, you became more powerful, confident. You let go of so much bondage. So it was like literally somebody took our relationship and flipped the script.
Yes.
And so not only were we adjusting to like losing each other to like, and having new people in our life that were like the priority people, like our husbands. Yeah. Now the entire dynamic of our relationship flipped, and it was hard.
Oh yeah.
It was really hard.
Well, and I would say in that season, so not only did you go through this, it's too complicated to explain how earth-shattering that season was for you, but it was part of your world.
Yep.
Fell apart.
Totally. Other than I got married in that season, which was the one good. Resurrecting thing.
And our friendship made it. So two things stayed.
Totally. Yep.
But I would say not only did that happen, but all of the emotions you had not been feeling for the last 10 years.
That's what happens when you don't feel emotions.
Yes.
One day they explode and you are left completely lost in emotion.
Yes. So here now Pietze's having panic attacks all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm falling apart. I'm spiraling into depression. I'm crying every day. I'm like just a huge mess, you know?
And I am busy because I'm traveling. I'm with Justin nonstop.
And where we used to talk every day on the phone, suddenly now like you're off with Justin on this road trip. We're only talking a little bit at a time. I'm going through a really hard season. And I'd lost like all my friend group during that time.
Yeah. So this is, we'll talk about this because we're going to talk about the importance of having lots of friends.
Yep.
Pietze and me have never been our only friend.
Nope.
That has never been the dynamic. We think that's too much pressure for any friendship.
Yep, absolutely.
It kills it. It like suffocates the life out of it.
You definitely need a tribe and you need people around you. And our friendship always thrives when we have other people around us. And when we put all the pressure on each other, it just is too much.
Totally. And our friendship thrives when we're engaging with other people. We're very inclusive. We liked inviting people in to hang out with us.
So even within the context of our relationship, we'd always be inviting people in, like, oh, come hang out with us, or come, let's go. You know, it was never felt like just, oh, it's just us, you know?
Which I think is part of how it has balanced of not being overly codependent.
Yes.
And we'll talk, like, codependency, there's lots of different definitions, but one easy way to define it is if you only have one person, you're definitely codependent.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
If one person is your whole world, because that means you have to do whatever you can to keep them. That means you have to become who they want you to be to keep them. Like, it puts so much pressure on that relationship because that's your only source of love.
Yep.
And sometimes, and not even the extreme of just having one, sometimes it could be that you just have two.
Yep.
That's still where, if, like, because I have Justin and you.
Yep.
If you were my only two people, that'd still be too much pressure.
Yep. 100%. You definitely need people where it's kind of spreading out, and so that your love tank is getting full.
Yes.
You know, like, two people can't fill that up.
No. And if I demanded that you meet all of my needs, it would be impossible for you.
Yep, totally. And it would ruin our friendship.
Yeah. So Pietze becomes weak, which was actually so good for her, and it was healing, and it was the direction to her life needed to go for her to become whole. And I'm becoming powerful, which was good and healing, and the direction I needed to go.
On that note, like, you becoming powerful, it was painful for me in the sense of, like, but I knew it was right. And so it was like this thing of letting go of our friendship, of knowing, like, she's on a path that I know she needs to go on, but so much is changing. Like, my whole world had just fallen apart. You had just gotten married and you were radically changing, that I wanted to hold on to you as you were. And I could feel this, like, thing of, like, being like, I don't like this. I just want to hold on to you as you are. But I also knew, like, I know that this is right, and I know I have to let her go.
Yeah.
And in my heart, it was a heart posture.
Totally.
It wasn't anything that I said to you, like, you were on your own path, you were doing your thing. But I knew I had to posture myself different.
And we had to grieve. I think both of us agree. I think for me, it triggered, and this is what happens in friendships. You have triggers. So I hadn't recognized, oh, Pietze's shut down. That's why she's capable and strong all the time. And now she's feeling this. So when she's a mess, I don't really know what to do with you.
Oh, yeah.
Not because I don't want to comfort you. Like, I love comforting people. I work with that all the time.
Yep.
But it so caught me off guard because it was like your personality switched so fast.
Oh, 100%.
And it triggered me because it reminded me of my mom.
Yeah.
Because my mom was a great mom until like 7. And then she became fragile and she never pulled out.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden, my best friend has been a great best friend. And now she has become fragile. And I am not sure if she's ever going to pull out.
Yeah.
And so we're both looking at it. And I remember we had to have lots of DTRs.
Yeah, lots.
I call DTRs defining the relationship. So it's like a relationship check-in.
Yeah.
We had to communicate where we would have these conversations.
Well, and what you mean by that is a lot of times, like, we always picture it as rings of your heart. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you have your inner core circle people, your inner circle people, and then your outer circle people, and then your outer circle. So it's like, what, are we both in the same circle still?
Totally.
Like, what does this look like, you know?
And we had to talk. I remember having conversations with you where you would say, like, you're feeling really powerful and strong personality, and I don't know what to do with that. And I remember saying, and you're feeling really emotional, and I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And there was kindness. Like, I don't think either of us were condescending to the other person.
No.
But we had to acknowledge.
Yeah.
We are actually both changing. And it wasn't like we had that talk every time we talked, but I remember peppered throughout those first few years, we would have, because we have to acknowledge that there's pain and we're bumping up against each other now.
Yep.
And like where we had fit, it's almost like our two puzzle pieces had fit really well.
Oh, yeah.
And now our puzzle pieces have changed and they don't fit together.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And I think that was the most, like, somebody taking a rug and pulling it out from under you season. Like,
yes.
Just like, what do we do with our friendship? And there was definitely a dance for a while where we were trying to learn a new dance and figure it out, you know, and there was a lot of conversations around that.
And so then, and now this is a few year season. We're not talking about like a few months.
No, this wasn't months. This was years. Mm-hmm. This was years of relearning our relationship. And I think one thing, and, you know, you'll see this at the end. But one thing about our relationship is even when the dynamics change, at the end of the day, we really do love each other. And that always brings us back of being like, hey, no matter what shape or way or how this changes, like, I just love you.
Yeah.
And I want to, and so we always came back to that.
Totally.
You know?
Yep.
But it was rough.
So we went through a few years where because neither of the seasons ended soon. My season of empowerment kept going because I had a lot to learn about becoming a powerful person because I've been so weak and fragile. And I don't think strong, meaning like I never had emotions. I mean, like I had so much victim mentality. And so I was learning about ownership and taking my power back.
Yeah.
And you were learning about needing people and being vulnerable and having
soft
emotions
and having needs.
And so neither of those seasons were short for us.
No, not at all.
And so then what happened is we ended up going through a conversation where so I would say the dynamics were already a little bit strained.
Yep.
In our relationship. We're trying to figure it out because it's basically like we both became new people. How do we fit now?
Yep. It didn't feel like the puzzle pieces quite fit yet.
Yeah.
They didn't quite fit there.
And so we ended up getting in a fight. We had a miscommunication. I communicated really poorly and
I triggered.
And you triggered.
Yep. And this is before I really knew what triggering was and how to process a trigger. And so I just completely exploded with emotion.
Yeah.
And did not understand what was going on. And we just could not communicate well.
Yeah.
We kept missing it.
Yeah.
And that just led to a huge cavernous hole that developed between us.
Yes. And
basically.
I would say like one of the things we've learned, and this is hindsight. So we've learned that you have some Enneagram 3 tendencies.
Yep.
Which is a few of the people that you, or 8, it could be either of these.
Yes.
The few of the people that you let in close, what they think about you really
matters.
Affects you.
Yep.
And I don't think you knew that. You didn't know that was a trigger. You didn't know that was something. So I was giving a strong opinion about something because now here I'm being powerful and I'm having an opinion.
Yep.
And I think it's fine. Like, I think I can have an opinion. You can disagree. It's fine if you disagree.
Yeah.
I don't care if you disagree.
Yeah.
But you are not feeling that way.
And you probably didn't even think you were being intense.
I didn't. And that is that's something I've learned, hindsight, is that I come off intense in situations where I'm not feeling intense on the inside.
Yeah.
But it sounds really intense on the outside.
Right.
And so I would say both of us bring these things to the table.
Yeah. It was a hot mess.
And so Pietze ended up ending all communication.
Yep.
Johnny did. You made your husband write me, which I was like, this is the worst thing that has
ever
happened to me. And only because I had a friend completely cut me out of their life.
Yeah.
Probably 2 years before of this.
Yeah.
And Pietze had walked with me through how painful it was. Because the thing with that friend is that we didn't get to talk through it. It was another silly miscommunication.
Right.
And we didn't get to talk through it. And I was like, if I could just talk through this with her, I know that we could see eye to eye on it. Mm-hmm. And so that feeling of being powerless, because the first miscommunication with my friend before this really was it's like a romantic comedy where both people mean well, but they just missed it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So here, me and Pietze are having, we both mean well, but we're missing it. And so I'm thinking, okay, we'll just keep talking through it. But Pietze was in a season, I'm bringing this up not to like say you didn't do it well. I'm actually going to explain why I think it's good.
At all.
She is in a season where she's too fragile.
Yeah, like I couldn't have another conversation. Mm-hmm. Like I felt too weak to have another conversation that was intense.
If you talk intense, it'll destroy my soul.
Yeah.
I will just roll over and die.
Yep, I will break. And I can't handle it. And I don't know how to navigate this without having intense. Like every time we try, it just gets so intense and I can't handle it.
Yeah.
And so I think at that time, the best thing to do seemed like we need to take a break. Like I need to just be done with this for a while.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I would not have done that. But obviously hindsight is 2020. And also, I had no idea at that time, like I had known that you had gone through this deep hurt with this friend. In my mind, I was not doing the same thing. Like
Totally.
what I was doing was different, and I couldn't see past my own pain.
Right.
To think like, oh, what I'm doing is about to be
causing
one of
her
the most devastating things to her. I just thought, she can't even handle me right now. I can't handle me right now. I can't handle her.
Totally.
We just need to like break this up for a bit,
Right.
you know, until I can get stronger so that we can have a conversation.
And I would say this happens in all friendship pains where both people are in pain and they can't see the other person.
No.
So like I'm looking at, I cannot believe that you just did the thing that you know hurt me the most.
Right.
And she's looking at it like, I cannot believe Abby just did this thing that hurt me the most.
Right.
And when pain comes up in relationships, we often, and this is a part of the pain process, we feel our pain so much it blinds us.
Yeah. And I remember when we finally did reconcile and we came back together and you explaining that to me like, hey, I can't believe that you did the thing that you knew would hurt me the most. Like it broke me because I was like, oh, you're right. I wasn't even trying, but you're right. I did the very thing that was really like painful to you and it broke me.
Totally.
You know,
you were devastated.
I was.
You cried and apologized.
Yep.
It was, and this is what I'd say with hindsight. So there's probably been 3 different times where there's been separation and then we've come back together and all of them felt painful and all of them felt like rejection.
Yeah.
And all of them, I look back and think that was very necessary.
Well, and in some ways too, it's like the closest people to you hurt you the deepest. So we probably hurt each other deeper than most people.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the tricky thing. It's the same thing in marriage or it's the same thing in close, like long suffering relationship where you're like, oh yeah, like there's nobody I love more than this girl.
Yes.
And also I probably hurt her the most and she's hurt me the most,
Totally.
you know, just because you get into each other's hearts in a deep way, you know?
We were just talking about that with marriage too tonight. We were saying our husbands have probably hurt us the most.
Yep.
And have loved us the most.
Yep.
And it is a really weird thing.
It's a weird thing.
To have both in the same relationship.
Oh, it is. It's such a weird thing, but it's also a beautiful thing because there does build safety in relationship over time. And we've had to rebuild that safety so many times after we've broken trust.
Yeah. And
broken safety.
There's been lots of areas where we went through pain, recognized it, and then had to reconcile. And for us, I think cleaning up the mess never has happened in an instant.
No.
So
never.
like when we reconciled after months of not talking, it was like, I think the first conversation was, it was hours long.
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 hours or something. It was like a crazy long conversation.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that long.
It was long.
That's crazy.
And then we had continual talks about talking through things. And then we peppered in fun because you cannot do super serious all the time.
Yeah, so we needed time for it. Was like, hey, we're going to get on a conversation and it's just going to be shooting the breeze.
We're going to talk about The Bachelor.
Yeah, we're going to talk about The Bachelor. We're going to talk about what you're eating right now. We're going to
Totally.
And we're not going to have intense conversations because we need to restore some sort of safety and good feeling in the midst of normalcy in the midst of this.
Yeah.
And I would say too, like one of the questions we got was like, how do you work through conflict and how, like, it took a lot of us having to be humble.
Yes.
Like so much humility because even when we went into the reconciliation conversation, I really came in with my guns blazing. Like, oh, I'm going to tell you all the ways that you hurt me. And I remember that there was a moment where I was like, I can hold on to this or I can choose to see what she has to say. And I can buy into her heart. And I remember it like hurt because it was so humbling.
You have to swallow your pride. It is a horrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling. And because the lie is if I meet you where you're at, I won't get my needs met.
Yep.
When really it's an act of trust of saying, I'm going to reach out and meet you where you're at and trust that even if it takes time, my needs are going to get met too.
Yes.
And a lot of humility to like put my own issue aside with you and look and say, oh my gosh, I did the one thing that like was the most hurtful thing to you and I didn't even realize it.
Yes.
You know, and be able to meet that.
I know one of the things that I say to mend disconnection, it doesn't matter if it's a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, best friend, any relationship, when there's trust issues that have happened or a betrayal, not like a betrayal, we just had disconnection, but what I have learned is the only thing I have power over is grieving well,
Yeah.
feeling my pain,
Yep.
getting truth to my pain,
Yep.
and taking ownership for my stuff.
Yep.
So I've had lots of friendships, and I like to kind of say this as a balance. I've had you for 28 years, and I've had a list of friendships that have ended.
Yep.
I have both. I have
Yep.
lots of friends who I've had for a long
Yep.
time, and I've had lots of friendships that ended horribly.
Yep.
And so because I've had to go through all the kinds of conflict with friendships, the thing that I would say is I have learned when I get hurt, I'm going to go to my counselor or my friends, I'm going to process, but none of my friends pity me. Like, so if I came to you about, we'll just talk about one of the a couple years ago, I had a friendship that had a real mess in it.
Yeah.
So I came and processed it all with you, and you are so compassionate and kind. And then you'd process with me what my parts are in it.
Right.
And how it could, and you're both. And you can't have somebody who just tells you what your parts are.
Yep.
But you can't have somebody who only has compassion and blames the other person, because you can make villains out of anybody.
Yep.
But every
And it's not
conflict
actually helpful.
involves both people.
Yeah. Whenever I share one of the biggest life-changing stories of my life, which is a different story, I think it's actually on the podcast
Yes.
a few episodes back, but I always say, whenever I'm sharing it live, like speaking, I always say it's really good to have a friend who will coddle you, but it's even better to have a friend who will speak the truth to you.
Totally. He'll kick you in the butt.
Who will kick you in the butt, you
Yep.
know? And that's one thing that I've really love and appreciate about our friendship is that we have a great mix of like compassion and comfort, but also saying, I cannot tell you how many times I come to you like complaining about something Johnny does, and you're like, okay, let me tell you about you. And I'm like, really? Do we have to? Yeah. And Johnny's always like, oh my gosh. Like if I come back apologizing, he's like,
Did you talk to Abby?
and I'm like, shut up. Shut up. Yes, I did.
So I had to take ownership for things that it didn't feel logical to me in the beginning, because I couldn't understand where you were coming from. And so much of conflict resolution is being able to get in the other person's shoes.
That's the hardest thing.
But it's hard.
It's so hard.
So logically, I'm thinking, I just gave you an opinion. I don't know how that broke you.
Yes.
So it took me a while to be able to understand how deep the season was for you, to understand, oh, you'd put me in a place that my opinion actually felt like an endorsement of you or not.
Yeah.
Oh, I came off really strong. Oh, I have an edge that feels really harsh. Oh, the words I used sounded really extreme. And all of that is stuff I've had to learn in marriage too. The words I used sounded extreme. I've had to completely rewire how I use words.
Right. And I didn't communicate like, hey, this is a really fragile thing right now that I'm letting you into.
I had no idea I was vulnerable.
Yep. I think because I felt fragile, I overcompensated by coming in casual.
Yeah.
Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. You know? And so I think there was just a lot of misfiring, miscommunication.
But what I will say is, so that was about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And just to give people an idea of what it looks like. So we began rebuilding trust. It was slow. We didn't start talking on the phone every day right away after that. It was a very slow process. And because I remember being like, I don't know if I can trust her, because I don't know if the next time she gets her feelings hurt, if she's going to cut me out again.
Yeah.
That is like the one thing that I don't do in friendships, is if they cut me out when conflict happens.
Yeah. And I felt like, I don't know if I can trust her, because I don't know if like I'll say something and suddenly like I'll get a huge,
an intense
reaction that I can't handle.
Right.
You know?
And so we very slowly started stepping, and I think we just accepted. There's something about accepting where a friendship is at in the season. Mm-hmm. So like in the season when you were falling in love, I remember being sad. And when I would try to make us be in the same season, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And it would feel more painful and more frustrating.
Yeah.
So we could both accepted we're both slowly wading in.
Yeah.
As we accepted that, it made it easy to be in that season and to not constantly be like, well, I wish we were over here, or I wish it was back to normal.
Yeah.
Right? No, it was like, no, this is where it's supposed to be, and however long it takes.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, and even this year, we've still had moments where we trigger
Yep.
about that event.
Yep.
where we've had to go around the circle.
Yep.
And it's not like we've done that 50 million times.
No.
But I would say that there's been lots of times, and every time it's like we connect with, oh, I understand a little bit more of what was going on for you. I understand a little bit more. And we've had to walk through, like I remember I was at the airport this year, and you said I was saying an opinion, and I felt like the way you were receiving it, I was like, I feel scared that you're going to cut me out for this. I feel like you're being fragile again about this, and I'm not trying to have a huge opinion. And then you had to process, I am feeling triggered about your opinion about this. And so we talked through, but we talked it all the way through.
Yeah.
We both do you remember this conversation? No.
Maybe. If you told me what it was about, but I don't know that I want you to tell me what it's about over this. But
totally. So it was, but we both had adrenaline come up.
But we've had several conversations like this
come up, and then we talked it. Where literally I was like, dear God, dear God, dear God, this is because that's what triggers do. You think you're in the old situation.
Oh yeah, you go right back to the old situation. So when we both get triggered, it's like we're reliving 7 years ago, and we're both suddenly don't feel safe with each other. Yep. We're scared. And then you react out of that. Yep. And you end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why I always tell people, when you trigger, walk away, process it, because reacting through it usually doesn't get you anywhere. But we were able to process our triggers and then come back and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. Hey, this is what I'm feeling. And then explain it to each other to create safety again.
Yeah. So I'm just wanting to give you guys I want to lay out that good friendships take a lot of work. Yeah. And they take being willing. I mean, listen, Pietze, yesterday I was asking her for some feedback, which really I wanted her to just say my husband was being a butt. And she didn't say that. She was like, well, this is what you did. And this is how you... And like, those friendships are awesome and horrible.
And they're the worst. Because sometimes you're like, can you just be on my team? And sometimes we do say that. We're like, hey, we preface the conversation. I'm going to vent about something. I know what I did wrong. Yep. I just need you to be on my team and tell me that my husband's a loser and that I'm the best.
Totally.
Just be my cheerleader right now.
Yes. So it's this is what real friendship and healthy friendship looks like. We have conflict. We have triggers about other things besides this. Yeah. She came to visit me this year in Reading, and we got into miscommunication. We had to whiteboard what was happening, because what she was hearing me saying is not what I was meaning. And then her reaction to what she thought I was saying pushed my buttons. And so we just were in a circle. So we actually had to write out what are we actually saying? What are we actually communicating?
Yep. And that was a day. It took a day and a half or 2 days for us to process through it. So it just takes time. And I will say too, just like marriage, there's seasons. Yeah. So going through, getting married. And then again, when I started having babies, that changed our relationship too, because now I was really sick my entire pregnancy. So I didn't have capacity to talk on the phone every day.
It was so sad.
I know. And
because
even when
I didn't have
talk,
kids. Yeah. So it was one person's seasons changed, but my season didn't change.
Yeah. That would actually, sometime we should talk about that. How it's not fun when one person's season is changing and the other one isn't. But I will say it was just hard because now I'm going through all these things. I'm processing it all. And I don't have capacity to talk. And even when I do, I'm like the Waking Dead.
Yeah, the Walking Dead. Yes.
There was no awake. It was literally the Walking Dead. Yes. I didn't even have capacity to have a good conversation. Yeah. So it was just...
So it was... I mean, that was...
losing me probably in some ways.
I would say that was definitely probably... It was at least the 1 year you're pregnant, but probably the first year of your...
Yeah, because after that, you're not exhausted.
Sleeping.
And everything is about the baby. Totally. I don't have a life outside of a newborn and breastfeeding and staying up all night.
Yeah. And I think if this would be valuable is if you can hold friends, and that's why Pietze has never been my only friend. Yeah. And so it has enabled it so that when we have seasons where there's less, I will tell her that I feel sad. I'll say I miss you and I feel sad, but I'm not doing that to guilt her or to think that it should change. Yeah. Because I'm aware, it can't change. Yeah. And acceptance is such a huge part of grief. Yeah. I can be sad that we can't talk all the time, but holding on to what our friendship was in the last season doesn't help either of us.
No.
It would just make me constantly resentful of you for having a child. And then it would make you not have a safe place and you feel constant pressure and it'd be awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had other friends who filled a lot of my friendship spots. Now, it's never going to feel like the same because you're the best.
I was just going to say that. I'm like, in the midst of this, like, I will say this, and that's what I said earlier. Like, we always come back to each other because it's like, hey, we just have deep love for each other. We have the most fun with each other. Like, we literally can get around each other and we start laughing about the stupidest that
things.
Nobody else would think is funny, but it's because of our shared history. We think things are funny. We literally will karaoke in the car with singing completely off key in sync songs and all the stuff from the 90s. And it's like, we think we are each other. We think we are the bomb.com to each other. We're like, you are the best. No, you are. It was funny because one of Abby's other best friends, Ruth, was around us and she was laughing so hard at us because she's like, it's literally a love fest between you guys. Like,
every
it's
day
ridiculous.
I'm like, you look so hot in that. I love your hair.
I'm like, no, you look so hot. No, your hair's the best. Like, we are the idiots that people are like, oh my gosh,
Shut
I
up.
roll.
Yes.
iRoll.com.
Yes. So we went through you having kids, me not having kids. We went through and a lot of life process. And then it was like, so I would say it was probably a 8 or 9 year season of us. It didn't feel like, I mean, we enjoyed each other during that season, but it didn't feel like we were in our stride.
Yeah.
And then, ironically, we both went through a horrible life season at the same time.
Yep. Which, sad for us, but amazing for our friendship.
Yeah. And this is where I'm always looking for the gift. Like, what is the gift that God is providing in this season?
And
so,
you would say that all the time. You're like, life is so hard right now, but the gift is our friendship.
Yeah.
Because we are getting so close and we are each other's like shoulder to cry on in this season. And out of that season, we both, and we're kind of still in the season, we decided to go even deeper into health and emotional health, where we both had kind of like been there and explored it. And you had kind of excelled in it more than I had. And then we both hit this season. We're both like, we don't know anything. We're going back to square one and getting even healthier. And that brought a new level of closeness.
Yeah.
And a new level of health into our relationship where I'm like, oh, we're actually processing things way more healthy than we ever have because we're both going on our own individual health journeys.
Yeah. We're both seeing counselors and we both have common language and we're both, so we'll talk to each other about our triggers and taking ownership for our triggers. And we're both doing that, which has enabled us to then be able to process our own triggers with each other. Because now, instead of triggering at each other
and blaming each other for our trigger, we're taking ownership. Like, even just recently we had a fight and like you were like, hey, it feels like you're triggering, and I was like, hey, you're right, I am triggering. And I was like, I need to go process that. This has nothing to do with you. I need to go process this by myself. And then we can talk about the issue. Yeah. You know,
and then Pietze's been able to be like, hey, this behavior doesn't feel good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is about my issue. Yeah. You're right. I am doing this behavior. Yeah. I want to control this thing for you because I want it to go well, but that's not what you need. You need me to just love you.
Yep. And I would really say, like, if you listen to Laura's podcast about a blame-free lifestyle, that's really what we've adapted in the context of friendship, where we're saying, hey, we're really going after our own stuff and processing it, but then we're able to come together and do really healthy conflict resolution that feels safe.
Yes. So I want to talk about just 2 subjects really quick that are for anybody, so that they can really understand, just to help some people. So the first one is, when do you walk away from a friendship? So like, people are like, oh, I want a lifelong friend. And the truth is, I had lots of friends I thought would be lifelong. Yeah. I never would have picked the friends that have lasted, to be honest. I'm always surprised by it. Yeah. And so there is a time that you should walk away from friendships. And there's people where we've had to walk away, and honestly, if you process through to health when friendships end, it can be great. Every relationship that ended for me, and like I said, I have a handful of them. Yeah. I now look and I'm like, it was really good that it ended. We really both needed to grow. in the best world, I'd love for all of them to come back around.
Right.
But it's okay that they don't, because
Yeah.
not everybody is going to be on the same page.
Yep.
So here's what I'd say. If you are being bullied by a friend, or
Yep.
you're not being valued. And when I say you're not being valued, it means like you're having a voice about your needs. Like, hey, I need you to listen to me when I'm sharing my story. And you
Yep.
actually have a voice about it a few times, at least 5.
Yep.
And they don't do anything and they won't meet you where you're at.
Yep.
Then that is not a friend to keep close.
Yep. Absolutely.
If they dominate you, that is not a friend to keep close.
Yep.
If they won't go through conflict with you, that is not a friend to keep
Yep.
close.
Yep.
For me, that's one of my number one things. Are you somebody who runs in conflict, or are you somebody who will work through it with somebody?
Yep. Totally. And I think one thing that we say all the time is we'd much rather have a messy person who's willing to go after their stuff than a
Yes.
person who looks put together but refuses to lean into conflict and go after their own stuff. And so I think if you're in a relationship and the person refuses to lean into conflict and go after their own stuff, then
Yeah.
you know, hey, and you're running after health and your own stuff, then you know, hey, maybe this isn't an ending of a friendship, but I need to put you a few tiers
different
out
circle.
in a different heart circle. So you're not in my inner circle anymore. Maybe you're a couple circles out.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, we're good friends. We're not each other's person.
Yes. Like I say that Pietze really was able to, if Pietze hadn't taken ownership for her part of the last big fight that we had,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have been able to become friends again.
Yeah.
If she wouldn't have been able to get compassion for me, we could have maybe been friends,
Yep.
but we wouldn't have been able to become best friends again.
Yep.
It would have just been like a lifelong friend. So there's always going to be camaraderie that we have
Yep.
because we've known each other that long.
Yep.
But you may not be the person I'm processing my deep heart stuff with.
Yeah, because trust was broken.
Yeah.
And so we had to go through the process of restoring trust in order to continue the relationship. And if that's not there, then you know, hey, it's probably time to close a chapter on this.
Absolutely. So, and anytime somebody betrays you, the idea is, and not saying that you betrayed me, but anytime trust is
Yeah.
broken is really what I meant, is both people have to be willing to work on it, or else
Yeah.
it's not a thing. So
Yep.
if you're not both willing to clean up your mess, like Pietze was willing to figure out, why am I this fragile? Why did I give you this much power? What is happening?
Yeah.
And so because she was willing to go on that journey, it could build trust for me.
Yeah.
If you try to put somebody back in the place of trust without them rebuilding trust, you are going to have faulty lines.
Oh, yeah. And you're just going to be constantly hurt.
Yes.
Like you're just going to be feeling offended
And
all
triggered.
the time.
Yep.
And triggered all the time.
And maybe controlling of the other person.
Yep.
Or needy.
Totally. And probably codependent.
Yes. So one other thing that I wanted to talk about is so many people ask us, how do you build friendships like this? Like, how do you build a good friendship? So we're going to give you guys a couple things that we think would be valuable.
Yeah. So I always tell people right away, I've met with so many people that are like, I don't have any friends. I don't have any friends. And my first question is, well, what are you doing to be a friend?
Yes.
Because so much of our society is so narcissistic where we think, oh, somebody will come into my life and they'll just want to hear all my problems and do all my things. And even like you notice that people will say, oh, can we get together for coffee? And they spend the entire time talking about themselves and never asking another person a single question.
Yes.
And I say, okay, take a hard look at yourself because really both you and I have always been abundant in friends. And it's really our ability to reach outside of ourselves and be a friend to another person
Yes.
that creates, no, there's probably issues in that because sometimes you can make a relationship about somebody else and you have to,
It needs to be 50-50.
it needs to be 50-50. But I would say like friendship is like dating. So you're
Yes.
going to go through a lot of coffee dates with people until you find a person that sticks where it's like, oh, we're equally asking each other
Yep.
questions, interested, really hearing and seeking to understand each other. And that takes time.
Yes.
You know, but I would say the first step is if you want friends, become a friend.
Yeah. And
You know?
so I think good friend things is learning to ask questions, but then actually genuinely being interested and curious.
Yeah.
So you can ask a question, but not care.
Yep.
But so genuinely wanting to know somebody, but then also genuinely sharing about yourself.
Yep.
Because this is what I learned. I had a friend who was like, if it's all about me, then I never get to bond by contributing.
Yes.
And people bond by receiving and by giving.
Yep.
So if you're only giving, that means people aren't bonding to you by getting to give back. If you're only receiving, that means
so good.
people don't get to bond to you because you're not giving.
This single thing is like one thing that I wish that I could just like implant to people because I'm like, it would be life changing for you. And not only your friendships, but dating relationships and coworker relationships. If you could learn this one thing about give and take, you know, but then I also think learn how to show up for people. Like, hey, you hear you're an acquaintance with somebody, you're becoming friends and you hear that they're sick. Say, hey, can I drop off a meal? Like, no, for reals. I want to drop off a meal. I'm not just saying that to be nice. What do you want? I'm going to be at your house at 5. You don't need to talk to me. I'm just going to leave it on the porch.
Absolutely. And like showing up in people's lives like, hey, I know you have kids. Do you want to, I know you probably have to go grocery shopping. I'd love to go grocery shopping with you.
Yeah. And this is always funny to me because now that I've had kids, people always are like, hey, I'd love to grab coffee with you. I'd love to get
You're like, I do not have time for coffee.
I'm like, I don't even have time to go on a date with my husband, let alone go out to coffee with you. But then when I say, hey, you can come to my house and fold laundry with me. Or you can sit and talk to me while I fold laundry. It's always funny the people who are okay with that and the ones who are not. And I'm like, the people who are okay with it, okay, you might be my person.
Totally.
The people who are not, sorry, probably not going to have time for you in this season.
Absolutely. One thing that I'll say about finding friends is I always say this, you're going to have the most chemistry, instant chemistry with people that fit inside your dysfunctions. So I always have the most chemistry with the people who have the codependency that connects the best with my codependency. The dysfunctions, like we are drawn towards something from our childhood to reenact something to try to get through a cycle. And so I don't trust love at first sight with friendships either.
I just don't even really think that that's a real thing because oftentimes, like you said, love at first sight is really just dysfunction.
At first sight.
Dysfunction chemistry at first sight, you know?
My dysfunction is magnetizing yours.
And we will stay in a dysfunctional mess together. You know?
So when I feel that instant chemistry with somebody, I immediately in my head, I'm like, slow down. Do not spend every day with this person for 3 months. Because here's what normally happens. I did this in the past. I spend every day with this person for 3 months. And then I find out they're crazy. But now I have built that we are best friends and we do everything. So now it's a huge shift. Or instead of like, I'm slowly getting to know you. And as we build trust, I'm going to let you in slowly. People do this with dating and with friendships.
Really what it comes down to is romanticizing the other person. You make up who you want them to be.
100%.
So you think, oh my gosh, we're going to be best friends. And we're going to, and even so much of that, when I say that out loud, you're like, I don't do that, but it's subconscious. You do that. It's subconscious. And that's where really it's like, no, it takes time and there's going to be a dating process. You know, to see like, hey, are we actually good fit for each other? You know?
So we would recommend that. I recommend affirmation. I know that this is a funny thing. I say this to every married couple too. I don't think words of affirmation is a love language. I actually think it is something that fuels healthy relationships. Because if I'm going to confront you, I mean, they've done all the studies about if you're going to say one negative thing, you need to say 20 positive things.
Think of it like a bank account. If I'm not depositing, if I'm withdrawing more than I'm depositing, we're going to be in trouble. But that's what words of affirmation does, is it really deposits into somebody's bank account so that we can have hard conversations where I can withdraw.
So that is why me and Pietze are constantly saying everything we love about each other. And there's so much security in our relationship. And it's not like I need to hear her say that for me to feel secure, but it is the gift of what we have of love to give.
Totally. And it's just creating a safety net. That's what it is. Safety net.
Then you want to be willing to work through hard things. And so you can't just be like, oh, I just want a friendship where everything fit. I got to tell you, some of the people who've ended up being the best friends to me are people that I never would have picked. Like I either got put in a small group with them or they were friends with one of my other friends. And I remember meeting one of my good friends and being like, oh, I just don't think we would ever be friends. but we slowly grew, and they ended up being a beautiful gift to me.
Yeah,
because
or-
people who are different than us add so much.
It's so true. Or even like we can think, oh, we need somebody in our same season and our same walk of life.
Yes.
So some of my best friends have been like 15 years older than
Yep.
me. They're in totally different seasons than I am. Like when I was a teenager, one of my best friends was a mom.
Yeah.
You know, and through my 20s, she was doing the mom thing, but we were as thick as thieves, you know?
Yes.
And I just think explore, like put it out there. And some of my best conversations and closest friends have been like literally elderly women.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, I've really grown to really love this person.
Yeah. And clearly you're younger than me, so you can be friends with people younger too.
Yeah, apparently you can.
Apparently, younger people aren't all idiots.
Yeah, well, I don't know. If you asked me, I might think that. I'm just kidding.
And
They're
then
great.
and then don't put pressure on friendships to be something they're not.
Yeah.
This is one of the best things I've ever seen. Tyler Perry does this thing on YouTube. You can look it up, where he talks about relationships are like trees. And he's like, some friendships or dating or whatever are meant to be the leaves. They're here for one season and then they're gone. Some relationships are meant to be like the branches. They're there for a longer season, but they are gone. Some seasons are like the trunk. It's like there for a good amount of time, but it could be cut down.
Yep.
Some seasons are the roots. Some people are the roots, and they'll be with you for life.
I love that.
And he
analogy.
says that the problem is when people try to glue, like hot glue a leaf onto the roots.
Yep.
Because that person is not meant to be your forever person.
Yep.
The problem is when you try to create a friendship that was meant to bring life in this season.
Yep.
And then when that season ends, there are friends that I've had for just a season, and I love that I had someone for a season.
Yep.
I don't when a relationship ends, I don't throw away all of the gift of what happened.
No.
Just because it ended painfully or things changed.
Or you just drift apart.
Or you drift apart.
You look back at the good that person brought into your life. And the interesting thing about that is when you try to make a friendship something it's not, it ultimately ends up causing a lot of pain.
Yes.
Like so much of the pain that I have dealt with people in over friendships, I'm like, you put way too much on that person and that relationship that they did not have capacity to hold. And now you're in tons of pain.
Yes.
And you've made agreements and you've made decisions about what friendship is out of that one thing that you put too much pressure on.
Yes.
You know?
And then the other thing I would say is learn how to do all the things you're looking for in a friend.
Yeah.
Do them in your life. So
that's good.
I was thinking about Pietze when I was younger. She had so much confidence and I had no confidence. And her family was much more like, let's make fun of each other. Yeah. And so I remember there was things that she would make fun of me. No, like bad intentions. Yeah. Just like that was the culture of your family. But I was like, I hate myself. So don't tell me anything. And then I remember this season where, then I had to process as I was growing stronger with her about how that had affected me.
Yep.
And then she ended up being in charge of me in a dance production where she was giving me the pep talks every day and like speaking the truth over me about how great I was in the areas that I had felt scared about. And so there was this ability for her. I just was thinking about this story because I'm like, we have so many different times where we've had to work through things.
Yeah.
And there's other times that I had made a mess that we had to work through. But the thing about Pietze is she is willing to have compassion on others, and she's willing to have compassion on herself, and she's willing to be humble and eat her crap. And so when I want a friend like that, the only way I can do that is to match that frequency. So I have to be willing to eat my crap. I have to be willing to find people like that. Because some people are like, well, how do you find these people? Become it. And then you will literally like magnetize. You will be drawn to people that want to do that with you, that want to be on the journey
and
with you.
people who are not healthy in those ways, you'll find yourself not feeling drawn to them. You'll find yourself like it just naturally, if you become who you want in your life, it will naturally show itself. Like we've seen it all the time.
Yes. So we've given you guys a ton of information about our friendship, but really we're wanting to just encourage you whether you're in a season where you're feeling like really rich relationships, or you're in a season where things are changing, or we're going to talk about grief and expectations in another podcast because we're saying like you got to grieve when things change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we're going to talk about that in another podcast. But if you guys can actually, I'd love to give you the homework to look at your relationships and think through, am I accepting what is? Mm-hmm. Is there something I need to grieve?
Yep.
And is there an honest conversation I need to have? Either where I own something in the relationship, or where I say something that that is hurting me in the relationship.
Yep.
Or where I show up and I tell them all the things I love about them again.
Yep.
Whether you've said it a million times or not.
Did you say this or not? But am I putting too much expectation on this relationship?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Yes.
Am I making it something it's not? Am I trying to glue a leaf to a root?
Yes. Or am I trying to get all of my love needs met from one person?
From the roots.
Yes. It's not possible. Trees actually can't work if they're only roots.
Yep. They die.
They die.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, we're good at this.
I love you.
I love you too. You're the best. You're the best friend ever, and I feel so happy I have you.
I feel so happy too.
And I do want to just, Justin would hate being on this podcast because I'm being overly talkative now.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know me. Yeah. We could like go on
forever.
Yeah.
But one thing I did just want to mention as a hopeful thing is, so we went on this like 8 or 9 or 10 year season, and then there was a moment where we couldn't have created it. You became powerful again. I was softening again. We met in the middle. We both went through hard things. It's like this season of transformation that we both had to go on was kind of full circle, and everything kind of fell back into place. Now, again, it's been hard work, but it's been so easy. It feels like our puzzle pieces fit again.
They fit again. Yep.
And so I just want to encourage you out there also that if you're in a season where things aren't like that happening, full circle things happen.
Yep.
You never know who they'll happen with, and you can't demand that they happen.
Yep.
But just to give you hope.
Like if you're in a hard season with a friend, just hang on. Unless you know it's something you need to end, just hang on, because you'll come into a sweet spot again. Yeah. You really will.
Yeah. And there's good redemption. And like I said, us going through breaking seasons is the best thing that happened to our friendship.
Ever happened to our friendship.
And that's why out of this season. I don't fear hard things, because I know that I receive.
Yep, even in the midst of it.
Okay, well, if you have liked this episode, please like it, share it with all of your friends. You know, if you're going to have a hard conversation with a friend, you should probably share this episode first to prime them. Yeah. Get them ready. Yep. So then they're like, oh no, good friendships do need conflict.
And if you want more of our shenanigans, you can go onto our Instagrams and look at our highlight reels, because we both have highlight reels dedicated to each other, which is ridiculous, but it's true.
Yes. Pietze Duffield and Abby Stumble. And thank you for joining us on The Connected Life.